Parataxe Digital.
Hello everyone, welcome to this third panel of today's Parataxe Symposium, Writing Chinese in Berlin, die chinesisch-sprachigen Autorinnen in Berlin. Forgive my German. I'm Mary, the moderator for this panel called Berlin Chinese, What is Going, What is Coming? Berlin Chinesisch, was geht, was kommt? On this panel, we have three Berlin-based young Chinese writers from mainland China and Taiwan, Cheng, Sicong, and Cheng. And in the following 75 minutes, we will discuss the various Chinese writing practices currently happening here. In this age of global mobility, where the Chinese diaspora is becoming ever more diverse, what we talk about when we talk about Chinese writing. The panel will be conducted in English. I will first begin with a brief introduction to our panelists, and then each of us will give a presentation, followed by a roundtable discussion for 25 minutes. And in the last 15 minutes, we will have a reading by our featured poet Chun Sue and her translator Christina Ng. We just wait for Wuqi. Okay. There won't be a Q&A section, but you're very welcome to come talk to us after the panel. What is that? Oh, that's me. So there's me. Next to me, we have Cheng, a Chinese writer, journalist, editor, facilitator, and activist. Chen's essays and stories have been featured in various Chinese, English, and German media outlets and publications, including Anitian Media, Made in China Journal, Süddeutsche Zeitung magazine, and the Tagesspiegel. She won the second prize of the Frontline Fellowship for Chinese Creative Nonfiction. Her works focused on global social movements, the displacement of people, and the remnants of globalization. Cheng relocated from Beijing to Berlin in 2023. And next to Cheng, we have Cheng, a Taiwanese writer based in Berlin. Let me see, Cheng is based in Taiwanese writer based in Berlin, whose writing practice explores the intersections of literature and experience. Through a phenomenological lens, he delves into the deeper meanings of literary works and investigates how literature shapes the perceptions and understandings. He founded the Live in Seclusion bookstore to provide a tranquil space for individuals to reconnect with themselves in the world through reading and writing. And last but not least, we have Sicong. The order is wrong. Sicong is an independent Sinophone writer based in Berlin, focusing on diasporic and post-colonial writing, autofiction, travel writings, and immigrant issues. Prior to moving to Europe, Sicong worked as a journalist and editor for Anitian Media in Hong Kong, receiving multiple awards such as the SOPA and the FCC awards. After leaving Hong Kong and Shenzhen in 2021, for 2 years, Sicong has lived in Germany, Poland, and the Czech Republic, pursuing an Erasmus Mundus master's degree in European studies and participating in NGO campaigns to support Ukrainian refugees while reporting stories of exile and resistance for a Chinese readership. He is currently working on a nonfiction book, combining his research, reportage, and personal narratives in Europe. And we go back to me and a little bit about myself. My name is Mary Lee. I'm a freelance writer, editor, translator, and art practitioner working between Berlin and Hong Kong. Before coming to Berlin in 2019, I have worked at HR Archive and managed an artist-run space called Things That Can Happen, besides engaging in various art and publication projects. Conceived in 2023, Encounters is my current bookshop project, featuring independent publications from Hong Kong and the surrounding region, mostly in Chinese, that represent contemporary East Asian perspectives and experiences in a wide range of formats and subjects. It is hosted by the Hamburg-based Chinese bookshop Bobo Books, and together with Hopscotch Reading Room in Berlin-Schöneberg, we organize a monthly pop-up bookstore. Also, through events and happenings with different collaborators, the project aims at fostering encounters and dialogue in various forms, and this panel is one such attempt. Now, I shall start the panel with a little sharing about my own experience as a Hong Kong Chinese working with words in Berlin. As I think it is important to look at the specific and concrete when we try to discuss the problematic subjects of the Chinese diaspora and Chinese writing in the West. So, to start, I arrived in Berlin in 2019 in the spring, just before the protests broke out in Hong Kong. By that time, I had been traveling in Europe for a year, occasionally working as a freelance editor and translator. So taking jobs from Hong Kong remotely. So I'm what you'd call a digital nomad. My being here itself is a colonial legacy. When the British handed over Hong Kong back to China in 1997, they granted British nationality to approximately 70,000 people out of the 7 million in Hong Kong. So my family is among these privileged Hong Kong people in possession of a British passport. And before Brexit, practically EU residents as well. I was educated in an elite Catholic girls' school in an English environment, went on to study English literature in the Colonial University and got an MA in London U. So to be quite honest, I do read more English than Chinese books. And depending on the context, I code switch when I write. So with this mobility, which is obviously a sort of privilege, granted me by my passport, my education, and my language abilities, I had the luxury of not having to think too much about my identity as a Hong Kong Chinese. And for some years, I was very happy to be traversing borders, cultures, and languages to live a fluid existence without the need for a fixed identity or sense of belonging. But that was until 2019. Things changed after I came to Berlin then. A series of events, Brexit, the Hong Kong protests, the COVID pandemic, decided that I'd be staying in Berlin indefinitely. So during the years of lockdown, as I tried to assimilate myself to my new adopted home through reading, I also lost the words with which to express myself. As I believe also happened to a lot of people in Hong Kong and around the world at the time. But my predicament cannot be simply defined as PTSD. I literally lost my words in the sense that I did not know how or what I should be writing, what language should I use, and what my voice was, to whom I was addressing, whether I would be understood or if I actually understood myself for that matter. So after I've come to a place where people think that Hong Kong is a city in Japan who have no idea why Hong Kong people get offended when you say ni hao to them. So suddenly this issue of identity and language took on an unprecedented significance when my time as a privileged global citizen ended, and I had to face the historic and systemic racism as an immigrant. And as an immigrant, I can be European, I can be British, Chinese, or Hong Kong, really depending on how, when, and why, where the question is asked. So it was not always easy to unpack. And to address my confusion and identity crisis, I wrote an English piece titled "In Search of the Perfect Teacup," or Authenticity, in 2022, in which I explored some of these questions about being an East Asian living in the West, and the meanings of authenticity, of multiculturalism, of social integration, cultural assimilation, and appropriation. sometimes, especially during the outset of the Hong Kong exodus, I would be received invitations from Hong Kong to do interviews or do write-ups as somebody who had left. And when a friend and editor and writer friend of mine invited me to ask me to contribute a piece, I translated this teacup piece into Chinese to be published under a pseudonym in a Taiwan-based magazine, which was newly founded by political dissidents, exiles from Hong Kong, which actually had a very clear political agenda to promote a certain Hong Kong narrative in the international struggle for democracy and solidarity among the Hong Kong diaspora. So it was almost immediately evident that my piece, with all its ambivalences, ambiguities, and unanswered questions, did not really fit very well in all these Hong Kong narratives and programs. And they actually put my piece under the food section, which I find really funny. And then I'd also written some occasional art reviews in both English and Chinese, mostly on East Asian representations and perspectives in contemporary art in this part of the world. Because while they certainly do exist in major international exhibitions like the Venice Biennale or Documenta, most of the time they are really just tokens, like numbers of colored artists included in the shows, and without being seriously discussed. So originally written as a personal note, my piece on a controversial Documenta exhibition in 2022, curated by the Indonesian artist collective Rangrupa, created some unexpected interest back home, exactly because I presented a very rare perspective that is rarely seen. But in general, I'm still quite reluctant to commit to any writing assignments, because in trying to find a writing practice that would help me position myself, I realized I do not actually have adequate tools to systematically and methodically deal with all the complexities involved, let alone the question of finding a platform for my writings. So instead, I started this project, Encounters, as you can see in the images here. As an organizer, I always consider organizing no less a creative act than writing or any form of art making. The project first started with my personal frustration with not being able to get Chinese books here, which gradually developed into a sort of concept for a project that would address some of the questions that have been bothering me. Using the bookshop as a method, Encounters is an attempt to bring in East Asian perspectives and experiences in the form of regional publications and related programs, and to create spaces for encounters and dialogue. Since the summer, other than a monthly pop-up bookstore with hopscotch reading room, I've co-curated the display at C-Space based on my teacup text, organized a writing workshop with Hong Kong writer Lei Zilang at Prince Lau Studio, an artist book launch with Helsinki-based Hong Kong artist Oscar Cheng at Archive Soup at HKV, a talk on Hong Kong independent publishing at Common Imprint, and most recently, a mini book display at the Taiwan Film Festival Berlin by Impression Taiwan, engaging in conversations about writing and publishing practices and cultural strategies with fellow Asian practitioners based in Berlin. And this is where you'll find me. Now, maybe let's hear about our panelists. Maybe Wu-Qing, you can start.
Hello, everyone. My name is Wu-Qing, and can I have this? Thank you. And how this? Okay. I'm originally from China, Beijing, and I moved to Germany the beginning of last year, 2023. And I think like when I was in China, I worked like 8 years as an editor, more culture, like thought wave, very small section focusing on thought waves, culture, like social current, this sort of thing. And later, like because of there was this political unrest in China in the end of 2022, and I was forced to leave China and came to Berlin. So I'm an exiled Chinese writer here, and so this is like a portrait painting painted by a friend of mine. It's based on like fictional text that I wrote about my experience being arrested and interrogated and had to leave China. And because in the end of 2022, because of all this, it's called white paper movement, and so many people were arrested, and then there was no voice out, and like people who were arrested and couldn't be heard by the public. So I was thinking of a way to bypass the censorship. And it was the same period of time there was Iranian uprising taking place. And I've been always following the uprising in Iran. So I chose to write my own story in the Iranian framework to pretend it was actually an Iranian story back then. It successfully bypassed the censorship and being read by, like, it became very famous in the end, this text. And for so long, people thought it was an Iranian text, and then they were like, wow, what's going on in Iran is so similar to what's happening here. And only after I managed to leave China and I decoded the text by adding the footnote and epilogue, and then basically decoding all the context into the Chinese one. And then again, it's getting spread it a second time as a Chinese context. And then it's being read again differently, and also with my name there, I just claimed it. And that was already when I arrived Berlin. But that was also with the consequence that all of my social media accounts were blocked. And my name became a censored word in China. So basically now I couldn't really have anything published in Chinese media outlet or publications in mainland China, I mean. And this is a starting point of me, because before when I was still living in China, most of my writing practice, my writing works are also more essays, like also lots of art reviews and also different essays and also like nonfiction. But now, because it's also like the change of audience, and I was also focusing more on the global movement, global stage when I was in China. But now it's like everyone here, the Western markets, just only expected me to write about China as a Chinese exiled writer. And so I will introduce a little bit of the current book projects that I've been working on. This is the moment I crossed the border. And this is like after I crossed border, I crossed like China-Lao border, and then by accident, because I was waiting for my German visa in Thailand at the beginning of 2023, and then by accident I came across with some Burmese exiles in Bangkok, and I just followed them to Thai-Myanmar border, and there is a border town there called Maesot. It's full of Burmese exiles, and also not only Burmese exiles, it's a really insane place full of basically people there are they don't really have citizenship, and there are also lots of fugitives, for example the telecom scammers are also based there, and there are also Rohingya refugees and people in different status there. And then So this photo showing there is a border market. It's very relevant to my writing, so I'm introducing this photo. It's a border market. Like this border is a natural border in between Thailand and Myanmar. It's a river. And this market is like, this is a border fence here. And people are selling stuff from, basically it's already the other side of the border. And we are buying stuff from here, from Thai side. But for a long time, I thought people are selling from Myanmar side, but actually not. And I find out on Google Map later on, it's actually, it's a sandbar on that river. The river is called Moai River. So basically those people are stateless people. And it's like a limbo there, basically in between two border lines. And then I was really fascinated by that space. And I felt also very relatable to my own situation, that because for me, exile is not really a space issue. It's also a perspective of time. So basically, so like one writing project that I'm working on now is called The Act of Waiting. So for me, like being exiled is also like your life is suspended, waiting. So all the time you're experiencing is a waiting time. So for me, this sandbar there is like a time installation, because it's mid of nowhere. It's non-time, non-space there. And I felt it's like a terminal in the airport. It's also for me a non-space and non-time. So this project, this act of waiting project I'm working on, it's on one side, it's also about my own story, what I've been through, and also how I came to Germany. But also, like the whole storytelling is to explore the non-linear timeline that I actually experienced as an exile. But that's also because I have a literature agent here, and when I was like also, there were, because I had a story published first on a magazine here, so it's Sicong magazine, and then there were like quite a few publishing houses, literature agents contacted me, and they were so interested in my story, wanted to have me to write a book. And then when I was trying to tell them that I'm not going to write a nonfiction, I'm going to more explore this more experimental kind of feeling that's of memory and of time. It's a mixture of fiction and nonfiction. And most of them were like, no one is expecting a Chinese exile to write this experimental stuff. And then there was even one publishing house and was like, you know what, I have a narrative for you already, and you have to write it in a way, it's a letter to your mother. I mean, because the story, there was a story I published on the magazine was already, because this Tehran story was a letter for your mother. Everyone was, you should write a letter for your mother. You should always write a letter for your mother. And I was like, why don't you write it yourself? If you have the story, you have the narrative already. And I want to read a little piece of text that I wrote in the Act of Waiting project. Our mother tongue has been completely disfigured, made obscure and ineffective by taboos. The censorship has turned the formal usage of simplified Chinese into a language of lies and empty political propaganda, an indescribable monster. With its soaring tones and flailing rhythms, it reminds people that knowing itself is a dangerous act. We are careful to communicate and express ourselves behind distorted codes and unspoken metaphors. Thoughts banished, ideas displaced. Memory is no longer an accumulative substance, but an iterative one. The old, quickly overwritten or rewritten by the new, with no continuity or coherence. I often wonder whether a new form of writing will be born out of disjointed experiences of our generation, whether language itself may have to be fragmented, deceptive, and alternating between reality and fiction, since our emotions and experiences undergo ruptures over and over again, and the reality we live in has to be hidden in elsewhere and fiction in order to be told. So this also it's also how I'm trying to work on this new project. It's more the format or the style itself. It's also like also part of the content, part of the story, how I experience time and memory. And yeah, and as I said, it's probably not really marketable book project, but I have a really, really good literature agent, and she is really, really patient. And then the same time, I'm working on another book project, like the same time together, and that one is it's about the Thai-Myanmar border. And it's also very relevant to this project I'm working on as well, because of the space and time I experienced there. I feel it's a metaphor for me writing about myself in Berlin. And there is also a paragraph of text I want to read here. My body resists Europe. In Berlin, I'm an exile, constantly experiencing this identity. I need to think, create, and present myself from the position assigned to me by this identity to be accepted by the system, because my existence in the West is just another example of the superiority of the Western democratic system. However, on that border full of exiles, refugees, and fugitives, I no longer experience it. In Berlin, I write about the exile of myself. In Mesot, I write about the exile of Burmese revolutionaries. Sometimes, just by changing the subject, I can't even tell whether I'm writing about them or myself, but it has become a comforting distance between me and the concept of exile, almost like an alibi. Thus, I can appreciate exile aesthetically, like those who don't have to endure it. Yeah, this is a project that I've been working on at the same time. And with this one, there's a Taiwanese publishing house and very interested. And like my literature agent, she's German, and she's also very interested to have it to sell to like English publishing house. But for me, emotionally, I still would like to have some of my work to be published first in Chinese, and because I couldn't have anything published in mainland China now. So Taiwan, fortunately, we still have Taiwan. Fortunately, the war hasn't broke, and because before Hong Kong served as this kind of like cultural enclave for mainland China, and those writers, intellectuals who are censored in mainland China could still have their works published in Hong Kong, and now Hong Kong is already part of China. And so fortunately, we still have Taiwan. And so then I still have this opportunity to write in Chinese, although I'm still writing in Chinese and English at the same time, thankfully with the invention of ChatGPT. And so then the question for me, writing Chinese or being a writer in Germany becomes, do I still want to stay relevant to China or just represent China in a way to fit into Western narratives in this polarized world? And of course, I want to be relevant, and that's the most important thing for me. And mainland China is always relevant. I don't want to just be a token Chinese exile writer living in Berlin, only selling my work to Western readers. I always, even when this work, I know this act of waiting, even I know it can never be published in mainland China, and I hope it can be read by readers there, and they still find it interesting. And maybe they find it more interesting than Western people find it. And that's how for me, the most important thing, writing in exile. And I'm finishing, sorry. And so in the end, like you can tell from my previous talking that I'm quite skeptical of this Western democracy. And so especially, I mean, I'm now, because of these two projects that I live in between Berlin and Thailand. And this, I was in Thailand last winter, the entire winter, 4 months, and after I come back, beginning of this year. And I started to feel, ironically, more and more home here because of the propaganda, the repression, and the censorship. And because now I feel, for example, on social media, I feel the same way, that how I need to code my language to talk to people. And I couldn't really express my opinion openly because I'm so afraid of being canceled. Even now, I have the fear that I might get canceled because of my speech. So that's how I exactly felt when I was in China, that the fear is always there because of the censorship, and you have to constantly self-censor yourself. And yeah, so thank you for relieving my homesick Germany. Thank you.
Thank you, team. Now maybe we can have Sicong. You can share a little bit.
So thank you for the invitation. I am a writer based in Berlin. I was a journalist in Hong Kong. And today I want to show some defining moments for the last 3 years I have experienced of my journeys and writings. So the first defining moment, can I play this? It's a short video. Anyway, imagine that this is the border between Shenzhen and Hong Kong in 2021 October, and I recorded it when I left that border. That was very empty, and I knew there was no turning back, literally, because at that time the zero COVID policy was so fiercely implemented in the whole country. So there's no turning back. I was trained as a journalist first in mainland China because I was born in China. And then I was trained as a journalist in Hong Kong. I started my career in Hong Kong. I went to Hong Kong in 2013 and I left it in 2021, which means I experienced the most turbulent era of Hong Kong since its return to China. I terminated my career in 2019 for some reasons. It's very complex reasons, not only because of the social movements, but also my family, my personal issues. I encountered the COVID as everyone did in 2020. I felt a strong, deep loss of speech for years. Waited and waited. So when I was in that border, I felt I had to make that choice to go, to leave this country. So run, homophonic pang, run in Chinese, which means flee, escape from China. When I was applying for the Erasmus Mundus program, I skipped all the projects related to China, related to journalism, because I was so fed up. I just want to get rid of my obsession with China, with journalism. So I chose a very Eurocentric program, European Studies. So I chose to go to Germany, Poland, and Czech Republic, 3 countries in 2 years. But I know in my heart, it is not only getting rid of China, but also to find a new way, a more inspiring way, a more diverse narrative of this world. Then I came to Göttingen first, a university town in Germany. Through all my journalistic training, the first person writing the I is always highly controversial. but gradually gained popularity when you write non-fictions. But still, to write others, I think, in my mind, is a learned professional skill. But to write yourself, I think I can echo many points that Wu Qin said. Writing yourself is to reposition yourself in a very psychologically insecure situation, especially as a journalist. But since leaving for Europe, my personal hypermobility became so significant that I cannot avoid it anymore. So if I want to find my voice, I have to write myself as a topic, as a subject. And also in my generations of journalists in China, we are so deeply affected by many American nonfiction writers who lived in China for a long time, corresponding to American newspapers, magazines, writing China to English readers. For example, Peter Hessler, Ian Johnson, Michael Meyer, etc. So when I came to here, I felt, okay, I can take their roles as a Chinese writer who write in Europe and myself in Europe for Chinese reader. And then I started my experiment. I wrote, this is one article titled The Long Chain of Homeland, The Outsiders in Göttingen. So I wrote Syrians, Turkish, Armenians, Sudanese I met, and I also wrote the interactions between me and them. So this time I put a lot of I in that, a little bit more at least. This is one paragraph. I want to read it and share it with you. The sky was adorned with the full moon. I stopped and gazed at the gentle moon, lost in thought, and almost unconsciously let out a sigh. And in the bright light, I could see my breath forming a faint, cold mist. Mo was also gazing at that moon. He turned to me and said that he had read a few classic Chinese poems translated into Arabic. Chinese poets from ancient times, don't they often write about the moon? He asked. It's not that important in the whole article, but every time I reread it, I felt something related. I felt that Mo, this Sudanese, suddenly understood me in that bright light of the moon. So when I chose to go to Poland and Czech Republic, I didn't expect the war will ever erupt. I just thought I want to discover the post-communist societies in Poland and Czech Republic, but in details and plurality, not only from the book. But after the war, I went to Poland, and I tried every method I can use to become a volunteer, to take actions into the different NGOs in Krakow, try to do something, help. So I think that was reversed. the picture, that was a selfie. And I also, the second picture, I also tried to introduce the situations I met in Krakow to Chinese audience on TV, to do something, to let some, not truth, but the things I met, I encountered to the Chinese audience. And then there were some Polish women. They started to cooperate some local and international NGOs in Krakow to set up a free shopping mall for the mothers and daughters and children from Ukraine. And I was one of them. I tried to be one of them to set up this shopping mall, a free shopping mall from scratch. And the third picture is the painting drawn by a 9-year-old Ukrainian girl. I found it really moving when I saw it. I think this 9-year-old girl knows everything. And this is one excerpt I translated. Maybe it's also not important in that in that text, but somehow every time I reread it, I feel bittersweet because this is a conversation between me and that Ukrainian refugee in Krakow, but I won't share this because the limited time. But not everything went so smoothly. Because to live in a foreign land is always hard. To write about it is even harder. But to just use English to understand the whole Europe is impossible. So, but this paragraph I want to share with you because it is one dream that I had when I was in Krakow. One night in Krakow, I woke up, realized that my dreams had no sound. The Europeans I know, my childhood friends, and family would appear together, but no one spoke, yet somehow we all communicated, as if language no longer mattered. My mind refused to let my parents, who only speak Sankayo, suddenly speak fluent English in my dreams, or have the Europeans I know speak Mandarin or Sichuanese, so no one spoke at all. This made the dream more plausible, but I still couldn't help but realize how unreal it was, forcing me to wake up and reject the illusion. Yet, once wake up, the metaphor became so obvious. My mind was lost in the translation. So then afterwards, I read Eva Hoffmann. She left Poland with her parents after the communist era. As a kid, she wrote like this. I found it so relatable. As long as the world around me has been new each time, it hasn't become my world. I lived with my teeth clenched against the next assault of the unfamiliar. Pattern is the soil of significance, and it's surely one of the hazards of emigration and exile and extreme mobility that one is uprooted from the soil. So the deeper I go, the deeper solitude I felt. I went to Czech Republic in late 2022. In my generations of Chinese intellectuals, we had such rose-colored glasses on Czech Republic. For example, Milan Kundera, Franz Kafka, Václav Havel, Prague Spring, Velvet Revolution. But that was all in Prague. The small Czech town I went was so far away from Prague. It is even closer to Vienna if I want to take a flight. So I lived in a total solitude. You can see the pictures, a vast cornfield, the deep night fog every single day in the winter. And during those days, China's zero-COVID policy was causing increasingly catastrophic consequence. I felt so powerless, had nothing to do, and lived alone in somewhere nowhere until the Chinese students and workers stand up and take actions and changed everything. So from that moment, I decided that I don't want to be a solitary individual anymore in the future. Beyond writing, I also need to create a community with my comrades. So this is one paragraph that a Polish artist told me. And anyway, I told her many writers and creators in China are struggling, wanting to make different choices amid the stagnation, but unable to. I was the lucky one who left, yet I often feel powerless. This time, instead of her usual critique, she said, "You need to keep writing about your experiences. It will surely encourage others like you." So after I came back to Germany, and this year I came to Berlin. These are some pictures. These are some things we created, including in Germany, including Berlin, and this is my motto as a writer. writing as therapy to quell the inner tempest. So I don't see audience, I don't see the very abstract concept, because sometimes the deeper you think, there was no answer. So for me personally, writer is to write as to queer my inner tempest. So these are some defining moments I want to share with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sicong. So now, last but not least, we have Kanchi.
Yeah, and I'm the last. I didn't prepare any PowerPoint. Compared with them, living in Taiwan seems too safe. The reason why I came here is not for politics, exile, or anything else. Yeah, and hello everyone. My name is Cheng, and I'm from Taiwan. This is my first month in Berlin, and I have prepared a little short manuscript. And everything still feels new to me. The reason I came here is simple. I want to study philosophy, something that is very far from the actual world. And I want to do it in a place that both unlike Germany, but also deeply influenced by it. My friend said, then go to Berlin. So in my memory, all I knew about Berlin was the fallen wall. Beyond that, I knew nothing. Like most people in the world, we tend to be more familiar with what's close to us, and the farther things seem, the less we know. For example, it might be hard for someone to name all the animals in the Amazon jungle, even though for the people living there, those animals are well known. I can't help but feel like I'm a person without a story compared with under her. Ein bisschen English. I don't fully understand my hometown or my own language, and I don't know much about Germany either. The only reason I am able to be here is that my mother passed away last year and left me a small sum of money, hoping I would see the world. Writing often begins this way. Someone lives and you want to say something, so you write. I came to Berlin with my mother's blessing, hoping I can survive the harsh winter in Berlin, and in doing so survive to study philosophy in a foreign land. I currently learning German at a language school, and most of the time I awkwardly speak it with a group of my friends or people who have all sorts of dreams. Some are familiar with Berlin, but not with the language, because you can get with English here also. But more of us are newcomers, people who have just arrived and are strangers to this place. Now, I keep my Chinese tucked away in a journal by my bedside at night. For me, Chinese is like a stuffed toy that I deliberately distance, never scared. And when I know I need to speak English, I reopen the mental room to take out my English toy and start speaking. I hadn't used English for almost 6 years before coming here. I think it is more important to learn German here, not English. But most people in my circle spoke Chinese. Both English and German now unsettle me because my accent makes it hard to express my thoughts clearly. You have to accept that you're like a baby again, and this imprecisions of something you must with. People often ask me why I came to Germany to study philosophy. I think it is because in the process of learning philosophy, you constantly encounter German philosophers. Over time, you start to imagine Germany, and without realizing, you end up here. When your thoughts are deep but can express through writing, something so connect to language, it feels like a reservoir of water that can flow out, eventually becoming stagnant. Back in Taiwan, I read many translate works, especially philosophical texts. So many writing style had often been described as having a translate tone. This means I write in Chinese, but my sentence structures and thought patterns are very foreign. Now it feels like there's a divide, one between the content of my thoughts and form of method of expression. I began writing during university because studying philosophy alone felt suffocating. I entered the philosophy department after struggling with mental health issues in the past. I wanted to understand myself and express my thoughts. Literary writing for me was simply about having something to say and finding a way to say it, no matter how smoothly it came. Before I left Taiwan, my teacher taught me to keep practicing my Chinese, or it would disappear. Writing for me is the most frugal task, as all you need is paper, a pen, yourself, and others, and you can start writing. Even if you are in prison or in frozen wasteland, as long as you can breathe and remember, you can store your writing in your mind, waiting for a free moment to write it down. Now, the crucial task in Berlin is, for me, the practice is not forget Chinese. In other words, the practice could be seen as figuring out how to stay an effect by foreign sounds, while also embracing them in a place with voice so different from your own. For me, not forgetting Chinese means remembering it. If a language represents a word and identity, now I'm trying to remember, trying to reconstruct or unearth what I've buried in my home language during the 25 years before I came to Berlin. For many, the word practice often refers to productive activities, and in writing, that means writing. But for me, my practice now is memory, preserving what I have and will gain. Before I write, I must have something to write about. That's what I practice, keeping it from disappearing, like protecting a flame from going out in the winter. Coming to Berlin has eased the pain I felt in Taiwan because of the distance. I thought I would write the unfinished essays about my hometown and unresolved grief, perhaps about my mother's illness. But in just 3 months, those images that reminded me of her have faded. Now all I see are my German word books and the daily texts I need to complete. I don't know if this is good or bad, but I feel at peace. I'm not actively digging for pain, seeking to write. As a Taiwanese person who have only been in Berlin for a few months, what I can write about are still things like a diary, the experiences of arriving in a new place. I cherish these small things like my first time shopping at a supermarket, hurriedly grabbing my items and leaving. What I mean is that I'm only focusing on what I immediately within my body's reach, feeling my way through a new place, even though we are all live in the same planet. Identity is the first thing we have but often forgot. So we write to remember and rediscover who we are now. We both invent and discover our language, our identity, our politics. So I think of myself as someone who knows nothing, coming here to experience a place firsthand rather than through books, even though we often expect someone who's doing something or living. Somewhere to know its history, culture, language, and environment, I think people often live in the world without that prepared understanding. More often, they forced to leave a place quickly and start new lives knowing nothing. In today's internet age, it's easy to stay connected with native speakers when you move abroad. If you go online every day, it's almost impossible to lose the language. Many international students I know still engage with their native language communities because they miss home, or they stay in frequent contact with people from their homeland. Even if someone doesn't speak their native language all day, At the very least, they read the news from home or their phones, like about natural disaster or worse. At this stage, instead of big political, cultural, or historical issues, I'm trying to capture what I feel as a living person in a Berlin that's different from Taiwan. Broadly, this might be what people call cultural difference. Whatever there are people, there are difference. And with difference comes to the possibility of a racial difference. I'm privileged to be able to read, eat, and hide from danger. I feel like an insect that's good at hiding, fluttering around every day, writing a diary about the air. Maybe writing has always been an active battle, engaging with history and issues. But I came to Berlin to rest, to feel like I'm nobody and nowhere in particular. Just to live simply, knowing tomorrow could bring something good or bad. I can't control how others treat me, but I can choose how to treat others. Writing as a practice at this stage is minimal for me, and I do it just enough to eat and sleep peacefully. So, we are always the stranger on the earth. So nowadays and zurzeit für mich es ist mehr einfach nur essen oder trinken oder schreiben ein bisschen Tagebuch, bevor ich ins Bett gehe. Ja, und das ist alles. Ja.
Thank you. So apparently everybody prepared a lot and we are totally overrun, but I'm very happy that we touched upon a lot of things that I wanted to discuss. For example, the language issue, like writing as a Chinese, where are we expected to write, or how do we stay relevant? And I'm thinking especially about language, because as you see this panel, it's very consciously constructed. It's like we consciously want to bring together Sinophone writers from mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Because like when you talk about Chinese, what does it actually mean? Because especially within these three regions, there's this very political language movements happening. It's like in Hong Kong, people would say we insist that we use Cantonese, and in Taiwan, maybe people would insist they use Minnan, and then which is like this is all Chinese, but very different at the same time. And when we come here, like as all ethnic Chinese, and when we write, and maybe also when we have to, like we always say writing is a form of translation, but for us it's even like double or triple translation, because maybe we have to always translate what we think into another language and another language. And so when we write in a foreign language, in English or in German, in a new place, we actually flatten all these things. And I want to see what you think about this issue of language. Like maybe like some of you are starting to write in English as well, or with AI aids, or for just it's totally okay. I think technology is great in this sense, actually helping us to understand each other. But also maybe like Kanji is just learning a new language, and how does it actually affect how you think about your writing practice, and does it change actually how you feel about yourself as a writer and what you write?
Before I came to German, I already studied a little bit German in Taiwan, and German is mainland that connect with philosophy. So in the course, I always diskutiere mit meiner Professorin, ja, auf ein bisschen Deutsch, English, and and Chinese. So this is the reason why I can easily and very quickly to combine or exchange every word in my in my corpse, in my head. Yeah. So I think, and in Taiwan, I didn't usually use English in my Alltag. Yeah. So I think. Because I can use Chinese fluently, write or speaking, but when I came to Berlin, you didn't have enough ability to find a actually word that can express the familiar name, familiar sign or the bedeutet mean of Chinese. So it is hard for me to just look at a harmful or the baby in front of others, because I can use Chinese to write a very good paper, research paper, but not in English. So everything for me is I understand that I have to keep my steps slowly and to take easy with everything that I'm going to lose about. So I think for me to learning a new language is important for me. Is I feel so comfortable to use in Chinese in maybe in Asia or in Taiwan, but it is not very comfortable or hat so viele Chancen in Europa Chinesisch zu nehmen. Ja, so. Das ist ein Problem, immer mit Problemen with expression. Yeah, so yeah, I always failed in writing. I think this is more important for me right now. You will fail it, but you can still succeed it in the future. Yes.
Do you?
Yeah, I can, because our experience is very different from, we are all different, coming from mainland China, coming from Hong Kong, coming from Taiwan. So, for example, Sicong, I felt Sicong intentionally use Sinophone writer instead of Chinese writer. I also intentionally use Chinese writer instead of Sinophone writer. Because I'm writing, the language I'm using is Chinese, because what is Chinese is also simplified Chinese, and this Chinese is also pretty much shaped by our political environment. The language I'm using, it's full of codes. It's a very, very complicated thing. I felt it's already different from the language we call, because for example, this identity issue is also very interesting. When I live in China, I'm a Han Chinese, and I'm someone from Beijing, and you wouldn't say you're Chinese, right? And it's only an issue when you actually encounter other, Hong Kong, people from Hong Kong, from Taiwan, and from Malaysia, Chinese, Malaysian, Singaporean. And then it's becoming an issue. And Sinophone is the most neutral term that people could find. We all could identify somehow. But for example, I'm because we are from China, and then it's also Sinophone is people are using this particular language, but there are also China is there are also lots of ethnic minorities there, and I felt my identity. When I left China, my identity as a Chinese become even stronger. It's a political identity based on our common fate, political struggle. So in this way, I felt, because it's also because of this political tension, Taiwanese and Hong Kongers are it's with all this kind of xenophobia because of this regime. And then people are trying to escape from this Chinese identity. But for us, it's it's not escapable, right? And how do you, I cannot say I'm a Beijinger. It sounds worse because Zhongnanhai is in Beijing. So, I mean, yeah, so now I felt like even stronger with this. And also I felt it's also a way I'm trying to experiment with this simplified Chinese after all this censorship, and how, because in this everyday life, how we code this language, how we play with this language to bypass censorship, and it's also becoming like part of the language itself. And that's also, I mean, it's already like becoming an identity. That's when we say we are simplified Chinese.
Yeah, to talk about simplified Chinese and traditional Chinese, there was a struggle when I was in Asian media in Hong Kong. Some critics against the simplified Chinese, they called the traditional Chinese as authentic Chinese, the simplified Chinese. You can call it crippled Chinese, disabled Chinese, 残体字, which is a really discriminated terms. But as Cheng said, simplified Chinese is shaped us and is shaping by us. So actually, when I was in Hong Kong, because of the atmosphere during those years, to read a simplified Chinese book is a little bit shameful if you read it outside in the public, because it's a censored language. So how can this language produce some authentic content? But now, last year I met one friend in Brussels, and she watched me had a simplified Chinese book written by Dubravka Uglish. And she was so amazed. She said, wow, this is a so beautiful book. Can you give it to me? And I said, no, of course not. This is my book. It's so hard to find a simplified Chinese book in Berlin, in Europe. So I think the reason I chose to use Sinophone editor or Sinophone writer, just like Cheng said, I want to be a more neutral way, but I agree. I totally agree with what Cheng said. It is a language developed in a totally different environment. Yes.
Okay, we don't have a lot of time, but just quickly, maybe we can talk a little about, maybe this is especially addressed to Cheng and Sicong, how, like as professional writers, like the challenges you meet here, like, any support system, community of Chinese writers here, maybe you can share a little bit about that?
Okay, I felt like because now I think a little bit similar to people from Hong Kong, we are experiencing like a big wave of diaspora now. And so it wasn't this infrastructure. There wasn't so much infrastructure before. And like, of course, there are lots of difficulties for us facing, especially here writing. I mean, as a professional writer, which means you don't have other jobs, right? You're not employed. And I mean, for a year, I still haven't got my KSK. And so all these difficulties that we are facing, and the fellowship, basically scholarship, fellowship, it's quite limited that we could apply for, especially we are not writing in German. So the options are very, very limited. And we are, I mean, in a way, because now there are more and more people from mainland China, like leaving China, coming to Europe, and we started to build our community. And me and Sicong, we both been involved in this new community building that, with different collectives and different self-organized way, facilitate things from happening. But it's still hard, lack of money, lack of institutional support, and this is the situation. Oh, by the way, because we also like, because we do also, apart from like having this more official book projects I'm working on, I also do sort of like art scene with my like collective here, and there is like an art scene that I put there It's called Revolutionary Tofu. If you're interested, you can have a look. It's a little advertisement. And
yeah, support our writers, please. Yes.
Sicong, you can share.
I think to engage with different, as you said, different collectives, minority collectives can enlarge our power to write. Because when I wrote that story, I forgot to share this. Those people from Syria, Sudan, Turkey. We are all, outsiders, foreigners, immigrants, refugees, whatever you call them. We are from so many different contexts, but somehow when I was talking with them, we can relate to each other's situation so much. So I think the minorities groups can always interact with each other. But also I think an organization like this, a panel like this, is really helpful for us to know each other, to understand each other, and support each other. Yeah.
So I guess we will have to wrap up here because time is running out. But I guess we can continue this conversation in another time because there's still a lot to talk about Chinese writing. And now we would like to introduce our featured poet, Chun Sue, and Christina Ng, who are going to give a reading on the stage. First, give a brief introduction to them, and then they can come on to the stage. So Chun Sue is a novelist and poet. She's written 6 novels, including Beijing Doll, Fun and Games, The Hard Task of Living, Red Children, Light Years, American Dreams, and Milk Teeth, and also 3 essay collections and 3 poetry anthologies. Chun Sue is a full 2022 resident of the International Writing Program at the University of Iowa. Her most recent work is a collection of short stories. I Can't Read Danish. It's published in Denmark in September 2024. And then we have Christina Ng, a Singaporean writer and translator based in Berlin. She works between English and Chinese and has interpreted for film and theater productions, as well as written and translated essays and features on art, travel, and culture. Christina translates literary works by Chinese and Singaporean poets Chun Sue, Liang Wenfuk, and Dan Ying, published in Other Magazine, Pathlight Magazine, Contour, a lyric cartography of Singaporean Words Without Borders. She was translator in residence at the National Centre for Writing in the UK in July 2024, and her English translation of Liang's debut short story collection, The Joy of a Left Hand, was shortlisted for the Singapore Literature Prize in 2024 translation category. Christina also teaches literary translation classes at Singapore's Nanyang Technological University and leads literature translation workshops with international institutions like Poetry Translation Centre, UK. So we welcome to the stage Chun Sue and Christina.
晚上好，我会读我的中文诗，然后我的翻译 Christina 会读英文，然后背景会换成德语的翻译，所以我先读汉语。伤疤。一个女人正在桑拿室躺着蒸桑拿。我铺开浴巾，也躺了下来，听到那个女人发出沉沉的呼吸声，像是睡着了。她躺着，丰满结实的乳房和壮硕的身体，蜜糖般的肤色，像大地之母。 我把手轻轻盖在自己那道剖腹产伤疤上，又轻轻挪开。我也闭上双眼，享受着温暖和舒适，让自己尽量什么也不想。第3个女人推门进来，向我们打招呼：“你好。”我蜷起双腿，给她让了点地方。我们3个赤身裸体而躺，3种肤色，同样静默。第1个女人离开时，我睁开双眼，一眼看到后来进来的那个女人漂亮的乳房，而左乳是一道扭曲的伤疤。她都经历了什么？我们继续躺下。我们的身体就是我们的经历，写满我们的故事。我们避而不谈，我们非常满足。此时此刻，我们享受着蒸桑拿。
Thank you very much for Chun Sue's Chinese reading of her own poems, of course. And here I'm going to be reading the English translation, my English translation of her poems, and I'm really honored to be able to translate the poem. So my translation, the title of this English poem is Scars, and I'm just going to start right away. A woman in a sauna room, taking a sauna, body supine. I lay down my towel, my body supine too. I hear the woman's heavy breathing, as though she was sleeping, her breast full and firm, her body brawny, her skin the color of honey. Like Mother Earth, my hand tiptoes to cover the cesarean scar, then tiptoes away from the scar. I close my eyes too, to enjoy the warmth and ease. I try my best to empty my mind. A third woman pushes open the door. Stepping in with a hello, I curl my legs in to give her some space. The 3 of us, bodies supine, bare and naked. 3 skin colors, 1 silence. When the first woman leaves, I open my eyes. I could see the beautiful breasts of the woman who came in last. There's a contorted scar on her left breast. What happened to her? We continue to lie down. Our bodies are our experiences. Our bodies are writing our stories. We avoid talking. We are very contented, enjoying the sauna for the moment. And the second poem.
周6我们在家。他用吸尘器吸已经猥亵了的绣球花。当我制止他时，地上已洒满数片天蓝色花瓣。我从地上拿起吸尘器把手，打算吸掉它们。他却拔掉了插销。我的儿子5岁，一个小小的插曲，生活中屡见不鲜。当我问他，我为什么生你？是为了给自己找麻烦吗？他回答是。
And here I got at home on a Saturday. He uses the vacuum cleaner, which gulps down the withered hydrangea. Before I can stop him, the floor is already covered in baby blue flower petals. I pick up the vacuum cleaner handle from the floor, planning to let it guzzle the petals, but he pulls the plug out. My 5-year-old boy, scattering his small interludes all over my daily life. Nothing new. When I ask him why I'd given birth to him, if I were looking for trouble, he says, yes.
一次，我总会无意中想起那些欢好过仅仅一次的人，真的只有一次，再多没有了，一次就够了。对我而言，一次就足以了解一个人的质量。 以及我们之间关系的性质。一次性是个美好的词，再多下去是重复。我不愿意将自己置身于三人或多人情境里，不愿意靠近蜘蛛网般的人际关系。于是撒尤那拉，一次就够，短暂且完整。
Thank you, Chun Sue. And here we've got one time. I'd remember all of a sudden people I slept with just one time. One time, no more. One time is enough for me. One time is enough to understand a person's quality, the nature of our relationship. One time is a beautiful word. When one time multiplies, repetitions replay. I just want to stay clear of situations involving 3 or more people. I do not want to go near spiderweb relationships. So, sayonara, one time is enough, short and complete.
我17岁时的梦想，作为梦想，它应该是某种非常想实现又无法实现的东西，以此区别于理想。下面便是埋在我心底里无法与人诉说的梦想：自由出入任何一个军队大院，随便进中南海钓鱼台国宾馆，高兴了躺在地上打个滚儿，在中南海的红墙外拍写真，可以对着战士撒娇，还可以装作微服私访，对着月亮读诗。更深层次的梦想，便是随意出入他们的寝室，想睡哪张床睡哪张床，和与我情投意合或者志同道合的小战士一丝不挂地躺在一起谈心。再好一点，便是和几位战士躺在一起谈心。如果床躺得下，我总有一天会老成圣母，就趁现在把他们搂在怀里，数他们的眼睫毛。
This is a poem that I really like from Chun Sue because it's so romantic and so candid. So I'm going to be reading my translation of it. My dream at 17. A dream should be something that you long to realize but can't realize. And so it's different from an aspiration. Here are the dreams that are buried deep within my heart. Dreams that I can't speak of to anyone. Enter and leave any military compound freely. Set foot in Zhongnanhai or Diaoyutai State Guest House freely. Lie on the grass, freely rumble in it whenever I'm happy. Take selfies outside the red walls of Zhongnanhai so I could tease the soldiers moon-eyed. So I could even pretend to be an officer guised as a civilian calling on them, reading poems to the moon. My dream, on a more profound level, would be to enter their bedrooms as I wish, sleep on whichever bed I fancy, lying next to the young soldier I'm sweet on or agreeable with, stripped down to our birthday suits, our hearts yucking away. Even better would be to lie together with a few soldiers, our hearts yucking away, assuming the bed could hold us all. One day, I'll finally grow old and become a Virgin Mary. I might as well seize the moment and hold them to my bosom as I count their eyelashes.
这个是我早期的诗歌，刚才的这首也是我早期的诗歌。在从通县开往国贸的公车上，在放着流行歌。从通县开往城里的公车里，在放着流行歌。有人跟着小声地哼，窗外流华灿烂。流华是我造出来的词。我看到了光和路灯，看到了工人们在施工。火花飞溅，那是流华。我心里非常安静，我感到了浪漫。北京像一座静静的航空母舰，今夜只被我一人看见。
Come to the last of our poems. To me, this is a very pretty poem, as you can hear from the Chinese version. And here's my English version. my interpretation of the Chinese version. A pop song was playing on the bus from Tongzhou to Guomao. On the bus from Tongzhou to Beijing city center, a pop song was playing. Someone hummed along softly. Outside, the window was passing grandeur, splendor. I made that word up, passing grandeur. I saw lights and street lights. I saw workers knee-deep in construction work. Fiery sparks zipped through the air. That's passing grandeur. My heart was so still. My feelings romantic. Beijing was like a silent aircraft carrier. And tonight, I was the only one who saw.
谢谢大家，谢谢 Christina。
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you everybody for this very interesting panel in English language, not German, not Chinese. So we are trapped in a limbo of language in a way, yeah, the bridge language. Usually we try to avoid this, but sometimes it helps. So thank you very much for talking in languages that are not your native tongues. Yeah? And for you, thank you for listening in languages that are not your native tongues. Thank you very much. The literature will end our program, so we are awaiting at 8 o'clock 3 very interesting authors, 2 of them big names from Berlin. One is a guest from Taipei. This is because one of the planned guests had to go to China because the old father became sick. So we have a change in the program. Later, more about that. Moderation will be by our wonderful Dr. Lia Yu, that also gave our keynote speech at the beginning. If you have missed this, please ask for the opening speech. We have it in German, English, and Chinese version printed on paper, or you find it on Stadtsprachen.de in our event site. There are links to all the languages. And there will be music. There will be great music by Professor Rui Ye from the Universität der Künste Berlin. Looking forward to this, and thanks for our guests. See you later.
Parataxe Digital.